Hello everybody, this is Bill Williams. Welcome to another Life on Trahan Creek series video. In today's video, I will be doing a trap dip using Rustoleum metal primer on a few new traps. So stay with me and follow along, and I hope this will help you. Coming up next. Well, we finished 2018 here in Mississippi with the second highest rainfall on record, and we're continuing to get more rain. So it doesn't look like my mud is going to get dehydrated anytime soon. It's been too much of a challenge trying to trap in the mud, so I pulled all my traps and I brought them in for some routine maintenance. Being a new trapper this season, I've purchased a good many traps, and I bought a few more here not long ago. I'm following the advice of several different people in this trapping profession that seem to know what they're doing. And one of the pieces of advice is when you get a brand new trap, after degreasing it, and that's boiling it to get the oil off. Plenty of videos on YouTube for how to do that if you don't know how. But after degreasing it, the recommended advice is to take the traps and get a little rust coating on them. You could just set them out and wait, but a lot of the trappers say just go ahead and set them out in the soil and the water and so forth. Trap with them for a little while. You may not catch anything. In fact, some critters may even dig them up because they smell them. But they're just getting rusty right now, so that's what I did. I just put my new traps into work, and that worked out pretty good. I actually made a couple of catches with some of them. So now we've got a coat of rust on them. As hopefully you can see, they're pretty well rusted. Maybe not perfect, but a good coat of rust. And that is required by this particular primer. This is for metal priming, and it is for rusty metal primer. As you see right there, rusty metal primer. Doesn't really work on non-rusted metal. We'll be mixing it with acetone on a 50-50 mix. That's half and half. In this case, 1 quart of the oil-based Rustoleum primer and 1 quart of the acetone. Got a few little shiny links that I didn't think to let out and rust, so I'm just going to coat them. If it works, comes off later on, so what? But anyway, we'll get some of these done, so stay tuned. We'll start by taking a little bit of trapper's wire, cut off a small section like this, and then we will bend it into these shapes like that, just like you see there, to make a hook for hanging our traps. Well, I would like to show you an example of a trap purchased earlier in the season that I painted. Just spray on paint using a method that I actually saw on the Meat Trappers channel. I might not have done it right. I will be the first to say I'm learning as I go. But anyway, this was painted with some flat camo type paint. But it's been on the trap line a couple of months, and it might not be too surprising to veteran trappers. But of course, it has had its share of nicks and knocks around in the transporting and burying and animal catching process, so that some of the paint's just kind of chipped off. Hasn't held up nearly as well as I expected, so I am going to put this one back in the Rustoleum dip, and I'll probably do some more traps at another time. All that first batch I'll probably Rustoleum them also if this works, and if not, I'll do something else with them next season. So we will take the Rustoleum, pour it into the dip bucket, and I'm just using a little 1 gallon plastic dip bucket here. You don't have to use anything fancy, just whatever you can afford to have painted on the inside after you get finished, because unless you want to try to clean it up, you're going to have a brown bucket. And then we'll do the acetone. Again, equal parts, 50-50. So we're just mixing it in. Acetone's a thinning agent, of course. A lot of uses in the trapping field for acetone. Keep you some on hand. You can use it in the, I guess you'd call them injector type needles for dispatching skunks and things of this nature. Obviously, you'll use it a lot in your painting type of work, so acetone's just a handy little product to have. You should probably keep some, as I say, on hand near your trapping supplies. Okay, so we got this acetone going, and by the way, you should be wearing protective equipment, gloves, if you are going to put your hands in it, which I'm not going to do, or eyewear. You definitely shouldn't get this in your eyes. All righty, got that done. I'm just going to stir it up a little bit, and then we'll be ready to dip. And don't want to drag out a tripod. I'm going to try to do this filming project and the dip project one-handed, so bear with me. Anyway, you'll take your little hook, grab the trap, and just submerge it in. Let everything get in there good. I can already see that this would probably work just a little bit better. As you can see, the trap's not entirely covered, with the total amount of fluid in there being a half gallon. And so, might would be better to get 2 quarts of each, and then you'll have a full gallon if you're going to do very many traps. I'm only going to do 5 today, so it isn't going to matter. We'll just coat it on one area and then move it around some, get it coated on the other. Just slosh it. Don't slosh it actually, but move it to where it will dip in different sections. Just give it a minute or two to coat up good. I think I found a way that it works pretty good if you just slosh the paint over it like that without getting it on you. Again, be careful. Eyewear's a good protection. And once you've got good coating all over your trap, may tilt it like that. That actually seemed to work pretty good. Once you've got it well coated, it isn't going to take it too long to coat. It's a dip process. And so then what you're going to want to do is just bring it up, let it drain a little bit. Check it out. I see a couple of spots that I don't think are coated well, so I'm going to put it back in a minute for a second dip. It's mostly just finding a way to get the primer up onto all the parts, and I do recommend a little bit of swirling around, and you're going to have to probably turn the trap maybe a time or two, kind of like I'm doing with this stick, to be sure that you get the parts exposed that need to be exposed to the primer, which is basically everything. All right, a little swirling and swishing, and you can kind of tell when it's about like it should be. And it does need to have rust on it, I can tell you that from just looking at the quick links, which you can see the quick link sort of takes a little paint, but not really. While the trap, when they're good and rusty, seem to take the primer pretty well, as you can see. 1 gallon bucket idea is not the right way to go, I can see. What you need there is probably a 5 gallon bucket, and instead of quarts, you need to buy gallons of the primer and acetone, and you're probably going to need to put 2 or 3 gallons into a 5 gallon bucket if you want to do a lot of traps. You might get, I don't know, 3 or 4 in a 5 gallon bucket and do that many at once. Doing them one at a time seems to be taking 2-3 minutes or so in the paint dip, and another maybe minute to let it drip and drain, and then just hang them. So it's a 3 or 4 minute process per trap. So trap dipping project is now finished. All I got to do is hang them to dry, which I'm doing on a convenient line left over from spring gardening efforts, summer gardening efforts. But overall, the traps look pretty decent. I come from a home building background, real estate background, and as a former home builder, I'm not a big fan of one coating anything. I'm a big fan of double coating, 2 coats of any painting type project that you do. So I'm not too sure that I won't, at a point when these are dry, that I won't just dip them again. I think maybe the second coat would not be a bad idea. But the next step technically in this is to put a preservative. Once they are dry, put a preservative over the traps. And for that, I'll be using Zep, a floor polish wax type product. A lot of people use Full Metal Jacket. Others say the Zep will do the exact same thing at about half the price. I don't know if it will or won't. Like I say, this is an experiment. If it doesn't work, we'll do something else. But I am going to try the Zep, so we'll see how that goes. But right now, these have got to dry overnight. To wrap up part 1 of this series, looking at the bucket, we used about 15 ounces of product to dip 5 traps, or about 3 ounces per trap. This may help you in computing how much of the paint and acetone you need if you're doing a lot more traps than just the few that I have done. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the trap dipping series. In part 2, we will see how the paint looks after it's dried, possibly dip a second coat if this one isn't enough, and we will apply the final finish using the Zap product. So stay tuned. I'll have another video up soon completing this process, and thanks for watching.